Ever feel like you're just swimming in information? So much out there, articles, studies, news flashes, and you just wish someone could, cut through it all and just hand you the really important stuff, those solid nuggets of
No,
knowledge.
absolutely. It's easy to get overloaded.
Well, that's exactly what we're trying to do here on the deep dive today. We've gathered this honestly fascinating collection of articles and insights. They cover, well, everything: global stuff, really personal challenges, big societal movements, even wonders of nature, our job. Extract the key facts, the surprising bits, just for you.
And that's where it gets interesting, isn't it? We're about to go on a bit of a journey through some really diverse material. What's amazing is how facts that seem totally unrelated can suddenly, click. And you get those aha moments, build a clearer picture of the world. So yeah, let's dive in.
Okay, first up, we're doing some watching the world. A few intriguing facts, some almost counterintuitive. Let's start with this Swiss study. It found something, well, a bit unsettling. People over 60, they actually have a 14% higher chance of dying on their birthday than any other day.
Wow, wait. On their birthday? That seems morbidly ironic. What are the details
I
there?
know, right? It's wild. Okay, so specifically, fatal heart attacks up 18%, strokes for women up 21%, and suicides for men a really startling 35% higher.
Goodness. Any idea why?
Well, the scientists are guessing it's maybe stress, maybe alcohol consumption linked to the celebration, but some experts push back a bit. They think it could just be human error, messing up the dates when recording deaths. Still, makes you think twice about blowing out those candles, eh?
It really does. Okay, where next?
Let's head over to Israel. A surprising finding about job applications. Good-looking men, they're more likely to get an interview if they include a photo.
Okay, maybe not that surprising for men, perhaps.
But wait, attractive women, they're less likely to get called for an interview if they include a photo.
Less likely. Now that goes against the usual assumptions, doesn't it? What's the thinking there?
Well, the researchers who did the study suggested it might be because HR departments, the ones doing the initial screening, are often staffed mainly by women.
Ah, okay. Interesting theory.
And The Economist, you know them, they offered what they called an unpalatable explanation. Basically, old-fashioned jealousy.
Oof. That is unpalatable. But maybe plausible in some cases.
Okay, moving on to the U.S. This one, frankly, blew me away. A major security lapse. Get this. 3 pacifist activists, an 82-year-old nun, and her companions, aged 63 and 57, managed to break into a facility in Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
Oak Ridge, the nuclear site.
The very one, housing about 100 tons of nuclear material. And what did they do? They painted anti-war slogans on a building.
You're kidding. An 82-year-old nun breached one of the most secure facilities.
Exactly. The Energy Secretary at the time, Stephen Chu, called it deeply troubling at what's supposed to be one of the world's most secure facilities.
Yeah, I was right. That's astonishing.
And one more quick snapshot, this time from Australia. Their highest court made a big ruling on cigarette packaging. Tobacco companies now have to remove all their distinctive colors, their logos, everything. All packs must be this drab, dark brown color, and they have to feature graphic images depicting the dangers of smoking. Really stark visual warnings.
So pulling these together. Switzerland, Israel, the U.S., Australia. What's fascinating here is how these seemingly random facts actually, they expose hidden things, don't they? Like hidden biases in hiring, maybe?
Yeah.
Or the vulnerability of even our most secure systems to, well, the unexpected human element. Or just how societies try to influence behavior, sometimes very directly, like with the cigarette packs.
That's a great way to connect them. It shows these underlying currents, human nature, system complexities. That birthday statistic still gets me, though. Such a universal thing, but with this shadow.
It is jarring, yeah. For me, I think the Oak Ridge incident really stands out.
Right.
It just shows how unpredictability, human determination can undermine even the most fortified plans.
So for you listening, what stands out? Do any of these snapshots make you rethink your own assumptions about how things work?
Okay, so we've looked at the big picture, some surprising cracks in global systems, but, sometimes the really deep insights come from closer to home. Let's zoom in now. Something many parents, or anyone who's been around young kids, knows well. That mini uprising. The toddler tantrum.
Ah, yes. The classic meltdown. Screaming, stomping, maybe some thrashing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The full show. And parents are left wondering, is this normal? Am I messing up? Will they ever stop?
Totally relatable questions. So why does it happen? What's the thinking?
Well, basically, young children just don't have much experience handling big emotions yet. And there's this big shift around age 2. Think about it. From birth, if the baby cries, Parents usually rush in, right? Needs are met instantly.
That's the instinct. But then, around 2, parents start expecting more. They expect compliance, less catering, more instructing. The dynamic changes. And the 2-year-old, they might protest this change loudly, hence the tantrum. It's their way of saying, hey, what happened?
So it's a reaction to shifting expectations.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Eventually, they usually adjust. They learn parents are guides, not just wish granters. Scripture even talks about children being obedient. But getting there takes patience.
Okay, so if you're in the thick of it, what can you actually do?
Right, the practical advice. First, be understanding. Remember, they're not tiny adults. They feel things intensely but lack the tools to manage. Try seeing it from their perspective. Like the Bible puts it, when we were children, we thought and reasoned as children do. It's a different operating system.
Good perspective. Stay empathetic.
Second, stay calm. Easier said than done, I know. But losing your cool doesn't help anyone. Remembering why it's happening, that developmental stage can help you keep your own anger in check. There's that proverb, right? The inside of a man certainly slows down his anger. Understanding helps patience.
Okay, stay calm. Crucial. Third,
Hold your ground. This is a big one. If you give in to the tantrum, what does the child learn?
the tantrums get them what they want.
Exactly. So you have to calmly show them you mean what you say. Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no, as that biblical principle goes. Consistency.
Right. Don't negotiate with a tantrum thrower.
Pretty much. And finally, be patient. This isn't an overnight fix. Tantrums won't just vanish. But if you react properly, consistently, they will likely lessen and eventually stop. Love, as the famous passage says, is long-suffering. It takes time.
Understanding, calm, consistency, patience. Sounds simple, but hard in the moment.
Totally. Oh, and a few extra quick tips. If possible, you can gently hold your child during a tantrum just to restrict the thrashing without hurting them until the storm passes, or designate a specific calm down spot. They can come out when they're settled. And if it happens in public, try to remove them from the audience. Don't give in just because people are watching. That just teaches them public tantrums are extra effective.
Avoid reinforcing the spectacle. Makes sense.
Yeah. And John Rosemond, a parenting author, putting it really bluntly, a child who can't take no for an answer always has parents who can't really say it.
Ouch. But probably true a lot of the time. So, stepping back, what's the bigger picture here?
Well, I think the real deep dive insight, whether you're a parent or not, is seeing these tantrums not just as bad behavior, but as a child's first really clumsy attempts to assert themselves. They're learning to navigate a world that isn't just about their immediate needs anymore. It's fundamentally about learning boundaries for everyone involved. Requires huge patience and consistency from the adults. That's a really helpful way to frame it. Shifts it from just managing a problem to seeing it as, well, a key developmental step for both the child and the parent. Setting boundaries becomes about guiding growth, not just control.
Exactly. It's a two-way street of learning. So, for our listeners, parent or not, what insights do you take away about setting boundaries or managing emotional responses, maybe even your own, from this look at tantrums?
Okay, we've gone from the personal world of toddler tantrums. Now let's swing back out to the wider world, to society, and explore something powerful, often controversial, the force of protest. This is where things get really interesting looking at the source material. It starts with a name, Mohamed Bouazizi, December 17th, 2010. He was a 26-year-old street vendor in Tunisia, frustrated, couldn't find better work, dealing with, corrupt officials demanding bribes. That morning, inspectors confiscated his stuff, his scales.
Just trying to make a living.
Exactly. He resisted, and witnesses said a female police officer actually slapped him publicly.
Oh, the humiliation.
Right. Humiliated, enraged, he went to the government office to complain, couldn't get anyone to listen. So right there in front of the building, he reportedly yelled something like, "How do you expect me to make a living?" Then he doused himself in a flammable liquid and struck a match. He died from his burns less than 3 weeks later.
God, what a desperate act. And the impact.
Profound. His act just ignited something. It triggered this massive uprising that actually toppled Tunisia's regime. And it didn't stop there. It sparked protests across other Arab countries, the start of the Arab Spring. Bouazizi was posthumously awarded the Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought in 2011. The Times of London even named him their Person of the Year for 2011.
From one man's desperate act to regional upheaval. Incredible. So why the surge in protests generally around that time and since?
Good question. A big factor seems to be deep dissatisfaction with the systems people live under. When people feel things are corrupt, unjust, rigged for the powerful few, the potential for unrest is high.
The underlying conditions.
Exactly. Then you often need a trigger, like Bouazizi's self-immolation, or maybe like activist Anna Hazar's hunger strike against corruption in India around the same time. Something that moves people from just feeling resigned to actually taking action.
Makes sense. It crystallizes the frustration.
Yeah. And the Bible acknowledged this ages ago, didn't it? Talking about a world where some people have power and others have to suffer under them. It's an old story.
True. But what's different now, maybe?
Technology, right?
Yeah.
Smartphones, the internet, 24-hour news. An event happens somewhere, even isolated, and boom, awareness spreads instantly. It can trigger responses far and wide, much faster than before.
Connects people, mobilizes them quickly.
Okay, so what have protests actually achieved historically? Do proponents have examples?
They do point to some things, like back in the 1930s, there were rent riots in Chicago. Officials ended up suspending evictions, even found jobs for some rioters. Similar stuff in New York City helped thousands of evicted families get their homes back.
So tangible relief for the poor in those cases. Yeah. And addressing injustice. Think of the Montgomery bus boycott in the 50s. Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr. That year-long protest led directly to the Supreme Court overturning segregated seating laws on buses.
A landmark civil rights victory.
Definitely. And sometimes protests stop things people don't want, like in 2011 near Hong Kong, protests against a planned coal-fired power plant, citing pollution concerns, actually got the project canceled.
Okay, so there are clear examples of success. But what about the downsides or limitations?
Right. It's not always successful. Leaders might just crack down harder instead of giving in. The source mentions a president in one Middle Eastern country saying about protests there, it must be hit with an iron fist. Thousands ended up dying.
A brutal response. Power pushes back.
And even when protests do achieve their initial aims, like overthrowing a regime, the source quotes Time magazine saying, the aftermath invariably brings new problems. Talking about one revolution, it said it was utopia that immediately descended into chaos.
So achieving the goal doesn't guarantee a better outcome. The transition is fraught.
Exactly, which leads to the question, is there a better way? Václav Havel, the Czech dissident turned president, wrote about dissidents essentially offering his own skin, a heavy price.
And sometimes that price is the ultimate one.
Sadly, yes. The source mentions dozens of people in one Asian country setting themselves on fire to protest repression. One man trying to explain it told Newsweek, "We don't have guns. We don't want to harm other human beings. What else can people do?" Just utter desperation.
Heartbreaking. That really poses the question starkly.
Now, one of the sources we looked at, which is published by Jehovah's Witnesses, presents a very different perspective on this. They explain that they maintain strict political neutrality based on their understanding of the Bible, citing scriptures like John 17.16 and 18.36.
Okay, so political neutrality is their stance.
Right, and they believe that the real solution lies not in human protest or politics, but in what the Bible calls God's kingdom. They describe this not as something in your heart, but as a real government.
A literal government.
Yes, one they believe God has set up in heaven, destined to replace all current human political and economic systems. They point to prophecies, like in Psalms, about its ruler delivering the poor from oppression and violence.
So a divine intervention rather than human action.
That's their stated belief. They see this kingdom as mankind's only true hope for genuine peace and justice, referencing the Lord's Prayer about God's will being done on earth. And because of this belief, they state that they do not engage in protests.
An alternative framework focused on divine solution.
To make this more concrete, the source includes a personal story. Patrick O'Kane. He grew up in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, that intense conflict, saw a lot of injustice firsthand. As a young man, he was involved, marched after Bloody Sunday, marched for hunger strikers, put up illegal flags, anti-British graffiti. Later, student protests, socialist protests, trade union strikes, even the poll tax riots in London that damaged Trafalgar Square. He was right in it.
So he experienced the protest route fully.
He did. But eventually, he became disillusioned. He felt protests often stoked the fires of hate and didn't bring lasting change. Then he started studying with Jehovah's Witnesses and came to believe that humans simply cannot bring about justice and equality on their own. He compared his past activism to trying to straighten deck chairs on a sinking ship. He found relief, the article says, in learning about a future without injustice under God's kingdom.
That's quite a journey from active protester to that particular faith perspective.
Right.
It really highlights the different ways people seek solutions to deep societal problems. So looking at this whole section, it really brings up a fundamental tension, doesn't it? Can human systems, through protest or reform, actually achieve lasting justice? Or are other frameworks, like the one presented by the publishers focusing on a divine solution, necessary? Protest clearly has a complex history, successes, failures, unintended consequences. The alternative presented here is just that, an alternative viewpoint on where to place hope for fundamental change. Understanding these different perspectives is key, without necessarily endorsing any single one.
That's a very balanced way to put it. It lays out the different paths people consider when facing injustice. A really important distinction between human efforts and a belief in a divine solution.
Definitely. So for you listening, thinking about all these viewpoints, the power and pitfalls of protest, the alternative perspective offered, what are your thoughts? How effective is protest long-term? And what might other approaches offer for achieving real justice and equality?
Okay, let's shift gears pretty dramatically now. We've been deep in societal struggles and solutions. Let's pivot and just marvel at some incredible stuff from, well, the natural world and from ancient cultures. Time for some pure fascination.
A palate cleanser, perhaps. Sounds good.
Definitely. First up, meet the elusive sand cat. This little creature is amazing. It's nocturnal, comes out at night from its den to hunt things like gerbils. And get this, if it catches more than it can eat right away, it actually buries the leftovers in the sand for later. Smart. Then it heads back to its den before morning. Super shy.
A desert survivalist. What makes it so special for that environment?
Incredible adaptations. Its hearing is super acute. It can apparently locate prey even when it's underground.
Wow. Built-in sonar.
Sort of. And the females can hear the male's high-pitched mating call from really far away. Then there are its paws. They've got this thick covering of hair.
Why the hairy paws?
2 reasons. Stops them sinking into the soft sand like little snowshoes, and it insulates them from extreme temperatures. Desert sand can get incredibly hot, like 176 Fahrenheit, but the air can drop below freezing, maybe minus 13 F.
Ingenious. Built-in insulation and traction.
Right, and inside its ears, thick white hair to keep out wind-blown sand, plus that hair on the soles of his paws makes its tracks almost invisible. Really hard to follow.
The ultimate stealth cat.
Totally. And it can get all the water it needs just from the prey it eats. Doesn't need to find open water. One more thing. Compared to other wild cats, which are usually pretty ferocious, the sand cat is known for being surprisingly docile.
What an amazing creature. Perfectly designed, it seems, for its environment.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Okay, from desert cats, let's travel to the Caucasus region. A visit to Azerbaijan. It's the largest of the 3 southern Caucasus countries. About 1,000 years back, Turkic tribes moved in, mixing with the locals, influencing the culture and language. Azerbaijani is actually closely related to Turkish and Turkmen.
So a real crossroads of cultures. What are the people like?
The article describes Azeris as lively, warm, with really strong family ties. They rely on each other, especially when times are tough. And they have a deep love for music and poetry. There's this unique musical form called mugam.
Mugam. Tell me more.
It involves a singer reciting classical Azeri poems, accompanied by traditional folk instruments. But it's not just reciting. It requires deep knowledge of the form and a lot of improvisation. Sounds fascinating.
Wow. A highly skilled art form.
Definitely. And another huge part of the culture, tea. It's served constantly in these small, pear-shaped glasses, usually with a sugar cube, maybe some pistachios, almonds, or raisins alongside. You find tea houses or chikhanas everywhere, even in tiny towns. It's central to social life.
The ritual of tea.
Yeah.
So important in many cultures.
Absolutely. Now, Azerbaijan borders the Caspian Sea to the east, and the Caspian is famous for sturgeon, especially the beluga sturgeon.
Ah, caviar.
Exactly. These beluga sturgeon can live for over 100 years, and they get massive. The article mentions one caught that was 28 feet long and weighed almost 2,900 pounds.
Unbelievable size, like a living dinosaur.
Pretty much. And yes, highly valued for their roe, the eggs, which becomes that super expensive black caviar. Just quickly on religion, the population is mostly Muslim, but other groups are there too, including, the article notes, over 1,000 Jehovah's Witnesses, many of them native Azerbaijanis, and materials like the book, What Does the Bible Really Teach?, are available in the Azerbaijani language.
So, sandcats in Azerbaijani culture. What connects these? Well, it's fascinating, isn't it? You see this parallel. The sandcat has these incredible, specialized biological adaptations to survive its harsh desert environment. And then you look at Azerbaijani culture, the music, the tea tradition, the strong family ties. These are like cultural adaptations, shaped by their specific history and geography, creating this unique, resilient identity. It really shows adaptation happening in both nature and society.
That's a beautiful connection. Both nature and culture finding ways to thrive, creating richness and diversity.
Exactly. So for our listeners, what new insights did you pick up about, say, natural design or cultural practices? How do these details maybe broaden your appreciation for the sheer variety on our planet?
All right, so we're coming towards the end of our deep dive. We've covered so much ground. Now let's tackle, well, maybe the biggest questions raised by our sources. Questions about ultimate governments and the very design of life itself.
Bringing it all together with some profound topics. Okay.
First, let's dig into the Bible's viewpoint, God's kingdom, as presented in one of our sources. Now, a common idea is that the kingdom of God is just, a feeling in your heart, the reign of God within you.
Yeah, that's a pretty common interpretation.
But the source material argues that the Bible describes it differently, not just as a metaphor, but as a real government, one that the Bible says will rule over the entire earth, citing passages like Psalm 72:8 and Daniel 7:14.
A literal global government.
That's the description. And what about when Jesus said, "The kingdom of God is within you"? The source clarifies the context of Luke 17:21. Jesus was apparently speaking not to his followers, but to hostile Pharisees. So the meaning wasn't inside your hearts, but rather in your midst, because he, the future king of that kingdom, was standing right there among them.
Ah, context is key there. Okay, so if it's a real government, what is it, according to this viewpoint?
It's described as a government established by God himself, with Jesus Christ appointed as its ruler, citing Matthew 28:18 and 1 Timothy 6:14-15. Its mission, to make sure God's will is done on earth just as it is in heaven, echoing the Lord's Prayer in Matthew 6:10. It's presented as the ultimate solution to problems that human governments and institutions just haven't been able to fix.
And what would life be like under this kingdom?
The source points to various biblical promises, lasting peace, security, prosperity, all on a restored paradise earth, citing passages like Psalm 46:9, Isaiah 35:1, Micah 4:4, no more sickness, no more death, no disease, referencing Isaiah 33:24 and Revelation 21:4. The source even mentions the Bible foretelling a reversal of aging, quoting Job 33:25 about flesh becoming fresher than in youth.
A radical transformation of the human condition.
That's the picture painted. Now, a key question. Will humans bring this about through their own efforts? The source emphasizes the Bible's teaching that God sets up this kingdom, not people, pointing to Daniel 2:44. It says, God declares, even I, have installed my king. So humans don't establish it, and since it rules from heaven, they can't interfere with its operations.
So it's seen as entirely a divine initiative.
Correct. And why does this matter to the listener? The source suggests that understanding this provides a productive direction for one's efforts, namely, learning about and striving to become a subject of that kingdom. It quotes Acts 10:34-35. In every nation, the man that fears him and works righteousness is acceptable to him.
Okay, a very specific theological perspective on governance and the future.
Exactly. Now, for our second profound topic, let's shift to biology. Let's talk about the incredible resilient brain of the Arctic ground squirrel.
Okay, I remember reading about this. It's truly mind-boggling stuff.
Isn't it? This little squirrel hibernates, and its body temperature can plummet to 26.8 degrees Fahrenheit. That's minus 2.9 Celsius, below freezing.
At which point, logically, its brain should freeze solid. But it doesn't. How on earth does it survive that?
That's the multi-million-dollar question. Well, a couple of things seem to be involved. Every 2 or 3 weeks during hibernation, it actually shivers itself back up to normal body temperature, around 97.5 F, for about 12 to 15 hours.
Periodic rewarming. Okay.
Researchers think this warming phase is crucial for brain survival. Also, it seems the squirrel's head stays slightly warmer than its core body during the deep cold phase. Lab tests showed neck temperatures never went below 33.3 Fahrenheit, just above freezing.
Fascinating. So it protects the brain somehow. What happens when it wakes up?
This is maybe even more amazing. When it emerges from hibernation, its brain gets back to normal activity within about 2 hours.
2 hours after being near frozen.
Yep. And one study even suggested its brain works even better after hibernation than before. Experts are genuinely baffled. The source quotes them comparing it to new growth emerging from scorched earth within days of a forest fire. Just an incredible recovery.
That comparison really hits home. It's like cellular resurrection. What's the hope for humans from studying this?
Researchers are hoping that understanding how the squirrel's brain does this could unlock secrets about the human brain's potential. Specifically, maybe finding ways to prevent or even reverse cellular damage from diseases like Alzheimer's.
Huge potential implications if they can figure it out.
Absolutely. And the source material finishes this section by posing a really fundamental question. Did the Arctic ground squirrel's resilient brain come about by evolution, or was it designed?
And that question really brings us full circle, doesn't it? Connecting back to the earlier discussion on solutions and origins. When we encounter these incredible systems, whether it's a proposed system of divine governance aiming for perfect justice, or a biological system like the squirrel's brain defying known physical limits, it forces us to confront the deepest questions. Questions about origin, purpose, order. How do we make sense of such complexity and potential? What kinds of solutions or explanations do we find satisfying or plausible when faced with life's biggest challenges and mysteries?
Those really are the ultimate questions, sparked by everything from global politics to hibernating rodents. It's quite a range.
It is indeed. So, for you, our listener, how does thinking about these different viewpoints, one on ultimate governance, another on biological marvels, prompting questions of origin, how does that challenge or maybe affirm your own worldview? What new questions pop into your mind after this deep dive?
Wow, what a journey we've been on in this deep dive. Seriously, from those quirky global facts and down-to-earth parenting advice on tantrums, all the way through the complexities of protest, the search for societal answers, amazing animals, ancient cultures, and ending with these huge questions about governance and design.
It really covers the spectrum, doesn't it? And that's the value, I think. Taking all this diverse information, boiling it down, finding those connections, getting those aha moments that hopefully leave you feeling more informed, maybe seeing things in a slightly new way.
Absolutely. So, given all the different solutions and perspectives we touched on today, human protest, divine governance, incredible natural adaptations, the simple power of personal consistency, here's a final thought for you to chew on. What single insight or maybe question from today's deep dive will you keep mulling over as you navigate your own path, trying to stay well informed in this complex world?
Keep asking questions, keep diving deep.
Thanks for joining us.